So today I'm going to walk you through the 12-ish mistakes I struggled with and see people make when applying to HBS. I originally wanted to make it around 10 mistakes, but I felt like the last two are worth including as well, so you're welcome for the bonus ones. Anyway, some of these are obvious, some of them are subtle, and a few of these are things the admissions consulting industry does not want you to hear. And there's actually one underlying mistake beyond most of all of these, and I'll tell you what that is at the end. These first three tips are about essay writing, and it's the most important part of this video, so if you skip everything else, don't skip this. First, don't just spit facts. This is probably the single biggest mistake I see, so I'm starting here. People will burn their entire word count setting the stage. They'll give you the market context, the business problem, the org structure, the scope of the initiative, and by the time they actually get to what they did, there's no room left. Here's what you need to understand. AdCom does not care about the nitty-gritty details about the world you are operating in. They just care about you. Your thinking, your decisions, what you did when things got hard. Just give them enough context to understand the actions you took, and even better, share what you would have done differently. This shows that you don't blame the environment for your performance and that you took the time to reflect about your impact and how you could have made your impact even better. See, here's the thing. You don't want a bulletproof application. You want a genuine one. AdCom reads thousands of applications. They know when someone is hiding behind a highlight reel. But what they can't ignore is someone who's clearly, unmistakably thinking for themselves. Number two, don't just copy somebody else's story or feel like you need to. HBS wants unique people. If your story reads like it could have been written by anyone in your role at your company or in your industry, that's a problem. They can tell when you're performing somebody else's narrative instead of telling your own. And look, your story doesn't have to be dramatic or heroic or perfectly structured. Some of the most interesting people in my class have stories that are quiet, unconventional, and not what you'd expect from an MBA student at all. That's what makes them memorable. When I applied, I knew something different about me compared to other applicants was my intense love of cats, or at least being unashamed to write about it in my application. I wanted the admissions committee to remember me as the girl who loves cats and wants to do robot stuff. Was that a safe application strategy? Probably not, but it was me. And that's exactly how I presented myself to my section. They met Blue and Bell at a picnic the first week of school. My section comes to me for all their sewing and alteration needs. Even if I don't perform the services for them, I can give them recommendations of what to ask the tailor. And I am one of the few resident roboticists. I like to think I have a pretty well-established brand at this point. So I think through my essays, the AdCom could tell I was who I said I was, and I wasn't afraid to be authentic. I talk about this more in my video about how to hack Harvard admissions using strategy frameworks, so check that one out if you want to hear about how I thought about positioning myself, and if you're looking for advice on how to position yourself in your HBS application. Number three, don't be too safe. I know this is related to the last point, but being too safe is kind of its own risk. If every sentence in your essay could have been written by a committee, if there's no edge, no real opinion, no moment where the reader thinks, oh, that's interesting, you're going to blend in. And that's the last thing you want in a stack of 10,000 applications. So show your quirks. Talk about a time you did something amazing but nobody else knows. Skip talking about your job altogether. I've seen all of those strategies work. These next 7 don'ts are your sign not to be lazy or try to game the system. Every school cares about different things. HBS cares about impact, not prestige, not your academic pedigree, not a laundry list of achievements. If you recycle an essay you wrote for another program without deeply rethinking it for HBS, it shows. The framing is off, the emphasis is off, it feels like a cover letter addressed to the wrong company. And that's essentially what it is. I only applied to HBS and Wharton, and even between those two schools, I had to think very differently about what each one valued. I ultimately got rejected from Wharton, and even though I did get an interview, I think one of the reasons is that my HBS and Wharton applications were nearly identical. I didn't rebrand myself as Wharton's target student. I have a whole video why I think I got rejected from Wharton, so go watch that if you're applying to multiple schools, because the lesson is real. If you don't tailor, they will notice. Number 5, don't list HBS resources you're excited to use. I see this one a lot, and in my previous drafts, I also succumbed to it. People think that naming specific clubs, centers, or programs show that they've done their research and signals fit. Newsflash, it doesn't. HBS knows you may or may not use the hundreds of resources they have. Picking which ones you want to play with is not exactly what indicates that you belong there. Who you are indicates that you belong here. So focus on showing that. Number 6, don't use ChatGPT or any LLM to write your essays. And don't let your consultant write them either. So I'm just going to say it directly. If you didn't write your essays, it will show up in the interview. Let me explain how the HBS interview works. Unlike most schools where you get an alumni interviewer who's just doing a vibe check and maybe some marketing for the school, at HBS, someone from the actual admissions committee interviews you. They've read your application, they've identified the holes, they've come up with questions. They will dig into the specifics of what you wrote, your thinking, your reasoning, and the choices you made. If somebody else constructed that narrative for you, you won't be able to defend it with the same depth and nuance. It'll feel rehearsed at best and fake at worst. And here's something that might surprise you. I think typos and grammar mistakes in your essays are actually okay. Like, for real, a small typo tells AdCom a real person wrote this, and an essay with 0 errors, with perfect structure, that reads like it was generated by a language model, let's just say that tells them something very different. Now, do I think there's a way to use ChatGPT in the application process? Well, I do have a whole video on that, so go watch it if you want an in-depth breakdown of how I think you should use AI in the application process. But just remember, your writing style is your fingerprint, and when someone else writes for you, it shows. Number 7, don't overcomplicate the short answers. People think they need to show something new in the short answers, and they over-optimize and over-engineer it. You really don't have to. They should be consistent with the rest of your application. Just be clear, direct, and don't overthink it. Inconsistency or confusion between your short answers and your main essays is actually what hurts you, because it makes AdCom wonder which version is true. Number 8, don't spam HBS students on LinkedIn. I get these messages, and most of them are not great. You can tell immediately when someone hasn't even looked at my profile, doesn't know anything about me, and is basically just trying to use me as a shortcut. A good outreach message shows that you've done your homework. You understand my background, and we have something in common, like engineering. Ideally, you've already started the application process, given it a genuine try, and you're reaching out because you have a thoughtful, specific question, not because you want me to do the work for you. Think about it from my point of view. I get dozens of these, and I can't respond to all of them. So the ones I do respond to are the ones where I can tell that the person has already done their research and isn't trying to skip the process. So show me and every other HBS student and alum that you understand who we are, that we have something in common, and that you've already put in the effort. That's what earns a response. And for the record, these messages do not influence your admission. No current student is writing to the AdCom saying, like, hey, this random LinkedIn stranger asked me about clubs. You should let him in. It doesn't work that way. The only reason to reach out to us is if you have a genuine question. So if you do, great. If you're just trying to game the system by collecting LinkedIn connections, save us both the time. And the last thing I'll say about this is that there's no one strategy to get into HBS. So if you're trying to find like some underlying hidden secret of how we all managed to get in, save your time. There's not one. Number 9. Okay, here's my hot take. And I know this will be controversial because this is such a popular thing to do. I don't think a qualified applicant needs an admissions consultant. And don't feel like you need to get one too, because 66% of people who get into the M7 use one. The only exception I see is that if you're coming from a super concentrated field like consulting or banking, where a lot of applicants look similar, and you need someone who has helped a lot of people with the same background help you think about how to differentiate yourself. But even then, your mom, your partner, close friend who knows you well, they can help you do that. And I will tell you, the thing that differentiates people who get into HBS and who don't, especially from these highly concentrated fields, are their personality. So that's what you gotta do. You gotta let your personality shine through. I only had 4 people read over my essays and give me feedback. None of them were admissions consultants. They were all people who knew me. And for the record, one of my classmates got rejected from HBS the first time they applied. They tried again, hired a consultant, and told me that they did not think it was worth it because their partner did more of the heavy lifting, giving feedback and challenging the stories in their application. They ultimately got in and told me that the consultant was a waste of money. So, what that confirms to me is that with enough reflection, you can do this yourself. And honestly, the process of reflecting deeply enough to write your own essays, well, that is the preparation. That's the work HBS actually wants to see evidence of. When you outsource that to a consultant, it doesn't just feel like a shortcut, it kind of defeats the purpose. So, not gonna lie, using a consultant not just feels like a shortcut, it feels unnecessary, and it kinda is giving desperate. That's my hot take. The MBA application is fundamentally a self reflection exercise. If you can't do that work yourself, what does that say about how you'll operate in a classroom where the entire pedagogy is built on you having a genuinely, deeply held point of view? All right, number 10 is a Uno reverse card. Don't let the system game you. Don't self eliminate because of test scores or background. This one I feel pretty strongly about because I've seen it happen too many times. People convince themselves that they don't fit the HBS MBA stereotype because their scores aren't high enough, their background is too different, and they don't come from consulting or banking, so they count themselves out or hire an admissions consultant to help them become more similar to the rest of the playing field. Some of the most incredible people in my class don't have traditional backgrounds. One of my friends actually took HBS online classes to build up their quantitative credibility, noted it in their application, and got in. They didn't let one perceived weakness stop them. So don't let it stop you either. HBS is actually more understanding than you think. I genuinely believed when I was applying that I would not get in. I didn't get into any Ivy League schools in undergrad, and I knew my test scores were just average. I also thought my work experience was mediocre at best. But I guess I was wrong. If you're a unique, self aware person with a compelling story about impact, you have a shot. I already revealed all my application stats in detail in my holistic application review video, so go check that out if you want a full breakdown or a kind of meaningless benchmark. These next few tips are quick, but it matters more than you think. Number 11, if you come to visit the classroom as a prospective student or on interview day, just know that people notice you and everything that you're doing. Nothing escapes the sky deck, aka the top row of the classroom stadium seating. So don't pull out your phone to scroll, don't take photos, that's a violation of the Chatham House rules, and if you don't know what the Chatham House rules are, look that up before you visit. Don't leave in the middle of class, I've seen it happen. It signals that you would rather not be here. If the vibes are off, your behavior will be reported and recorded, and if that's the case, none of these other tips will save your application. And on the flip side, don't be invisible. Come in with some confidence. When you're introduced, wave, say hi, make eye contact. I promise you, someone in that classroom actually wants to talk to you. The worst thing is when I can't even tell which visitor is which because when they're introduced, everyone is sitting awkwardly still, staring forward, making no eye contact. And that's not a good look either. Okay, so if you made it this far, here's what you've been waiting for. Every single mistake I just walked through, spitting facts, copying essays, gaming LinkedIn, over polishing with consultants, using ChatGPT, listing resources, playing it safe, counting yourself out, they all come from the same place. So number 12, don't try to optimize for what looks impressive. Instead, show how you actually think and operate. And I get it. I get why people do it. You're applying to Harvard, the most prestigious business school in the entire world. The instinct to try to impress is overwhelming. But HBS has been doing this for over 100 years. They've read hundreds of thousands of applications, and they know what trying to impress looks like. And it's not what gets you in. What gets you in is being interesting, not impressive. The people in my class who stand out are not the ones with the most prestigious resumes. They're the ones who make you think, the ones who surprise you, the ones who have a point of view and aren't afraid to share it, but are also willing to be wrong. If you can show that in your application, you don't need a perfect score. You don't need a brand name employer, and you definitely don't need a consultant. You just need to be honest about who you are, what you've done, and what you've learned. And that's what gets you in. So, if you're planning on applying this year, just know I'm rooting for you. And if you want to hear more about the inside of HBS, I have videos about everything, all organized into playlists. My essays, my interviews, the section experience, even simple recipes of what I cook in a week because I refuse to pay HBS more money by eating at Spangler, aka the only dining available on campus on the side of the river. And if you're working on your application right now and you have some specific questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. For now, while my channel is kind of small, I do read and respond to all of them. The comment section is truly the best place to ask me questions, and I promise the subscribe button is the best way for you to connect with me here. Anyway, the next video in this application series is about what HBS is actually looking for, the evaluation criteria that nobody explains clearly. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Until next time, bye guys!